Donna, we are excited to have you join us for this webcast to talk about how to automate the critical gap from buyer to customer journey. I met you in Utah in beautiful Sundance, and you gave me a signed copy of your book. Thank you. So
My pleasure.
before I ask you to introduce yourself and tell us about your book, let me tell everyone about me. I'm Dickie Singh, founder and CEO of Cast.app, an automation platform to drive growth and revenue from existing customers without expanding teams. So we automate things that matter the most to customer success and revenue leaders. That is growth, revenue, and referrals. And integral to growth is driving usage, usefulness, and adoption of products customers are paying for, which leads to no-brainer renewals, upsells, cross-sells, and referrals. Well thought through onboarding is critical to driving usage, usefulness, adoption, and the customer product fit. Today, we have Donna Weber, the world's leading expert on customer onboarding. Donna, welcome, and please introduce yourself and also tell us about your book.
Thank you so much, Dickie. It's such a pleasure. I'm so grateful that we met in Utah and we're continuing the conversation. And I work with high growth companies to help them turn new and existing customers into loyal champions. And it's all about really engaging customers and delivering value as quickly as possible. And last year, my book, Onboarding Matters, came out. People have told me it's the most practical business book they ever read. And I detail my orchestrated onboarding framework, which we'll talk about, and how to really drive value to customers so that they stick around for the long term and have those no-brainer renewals you talked about. I love that term.
I know. I actually read your book on the flight back from from Utah to San Francisco, and I might add it's a very easy read. It's like very easy to follow. I was like bookmarking so that things I wanted to get back to. But thank you for sharing. So let's jump in and start with your favorite topic, onboarding, or to differentiate it from employee onboarding, customer onboarding. So what is the importance of onboarding in the customer journey, overall health, retention, adoption, and expansion?
Well, there's a lot of customer success focus these days, which is really awesome. But it seems that a lot of companies think that every interaction with customers has equal weight. But the reality is that at the beginning of the journey, the beginning of any relationship is the most important. And we all know how important first impressions are, that due to the way the inner workings of the brain, that first interaction kind of creates it kind of lays down the assumptions and judgments that will continue. So if you don't start off on a good footing with your new customers, you're going to always be struggling. And I can't tell you how many companies that I talk with and work with where they tell me that the customers are stuck in backlogs, implementations were really rough. Customers fall into the trough of disillusionment, and then customer success teams are struggling to win back their love. And my goal is to avoid all of that and start with the love and then keep it going.
Somehow I had a visual of Ed Powers, like when we were talking about this. I think you also mentioned in your book, but he also talks the same thing. The importance of onboarding is much higher than other things.
Yes, and I learned about that from Ed, and so he's really turned me on to the neuroscience of onboarding, and I'm actually going to be having a chat with him this week.
Nice. We will talk more about that, and I have some research papers that I can share with you about.
Oh, please, let me make a note of that.
So, I recall a really long conversation at Pete's Coffee at San Carlos, right? So onboarding starts even before the customer begins the customer journey, right? And we called it the buyer journey before that. So, onboarding includes pre-boarding, where you tell the prospect how awesome and ready to help the customer success team is, and what to expect from the company and the customer success team once the prospect kind of becomes the customer. I recall you called it embarking or embark in your orchestration, onboarding orchestration. How would you differentiate pre-boarding from onboarding, considering a prospect is transforming from a buyer journey into the customer journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I worked with one company and the head of sales operations said, everyone wants to see the path to success. And now I quote him, everyone wants to see the path to success. And there's this idea in high tech that like, we just go live with the product and everything's fine. But the reality is that many of the products are pretty complex. And even though somebody buys the product and there's going to be a team who delivers the product, there's going to be a need. There's often a project team. There's often, most of the companies I talk with, their onboarding takes 3 to 9 months. So there's a whole journey ahead. And there's this idea that we close the deal and then, all that other stuff happens later. But let me tell you, I was working with a company. They provide a marketing platform for real estate agents, and I was meeting with the CFO, and he shared with me that he was buying a document signing platform similar to DocuSign, and during the buyer journey, they were sharing with him, here's all the things that you need to do. These are all the things we do. This is how long each thing takes. Here's a website with your CSM dedicated, and this is all the things we do for you. They even included it in the contract. Here's how long each thing takes, number of hours. In this case, it was hours. This is how long what you need to do, how long it takes is what we do, how long it takes. And his reaction was, this company's got their stuff together. I want to work with them. So we need to go beyond that, like that the sales is a separate thing and the post-sales is I was talking with a company, a customer success leader recently, and he said, oh, we have separation between church and state. Now, he was talking about the implementation and the customer success teams, but so many companies have this, quote, separation between church and state when it comes to sales and post-sales. And it's ridiculous because it's going to actually instill more confidence in me if I bind cast app and you help me know you're not just throwing a product at me, but you have best practices, a methodology that's going to get me to value as quickly as possible. One, it's going to reduce the sales cycle. 2, it's going to keep me more engaged. And 3, it's going to make the post-sales teams much more successful. So, it seems very obvious to me. Yeah. And I am continue to be amazed how we're stuck in this old sales paradigm. I'll add one more thing. I was working with one company and they provide hardware and software for medical practices. And the CRO there at the time, they moved on, but he was all time kills all deals. Don't get involved in my sales journey. But the impact was he was busy closing all the deals, throwing everything over to the implementation team. The implementation team was struggling to implement because they were poor fit. The implementations were costly and long, and customers were frustrated. And then the reality was the sales reps had to keep coming in to resolve issues. And there were huge opportunity costs because they weren't out there selling. So all that, don't engage during the sales was costing that company over $500,000 a year.
Yeah. And you talked about like time to value, time to perceived value, resources needed to get to value. So all those kind of things are like ultra important. Sometimes you can't put all of these down because you don't know how much time a customer would take to do the same tasks, but you can average it across other customers by, the industry, by the size of the customer, and putting something together like this really goes a long way. And as we talk, pre-boarding, as we just started talking about, is effective. It does help close the deals faster, but it is resource intensive for the CS organization, especially when the CS folks are brought in to close deals. And so typically what ends up happening is you bring in CS folks for very strategic accounts, right? And we don't bring in for others. Could pre-boarding be offered to all customers, for example? And how?
Absolutely. So generally, we're talking about a more complex product where there's a higher touch sales process and a higher touch CS journey, post-sales journey. And, we could talk about automation a bit as well. But in sales reps can be presenting. So, what I do when I work with companies, we define the journey ahead in very, in a visual kind of aspirational, inspirational way that everyone can relate to. And that can be 1 to 3 slides in a sales prop deck. It does not have to be a high lift by CS. And then 2, we define exactly when somebody in CS would engage. So generally that would be very late in the sales cycle. And they're really helping to talk about the path ahead. They're not like going to start diving into technical weeds and scare off customers, and scare off the prospects, because that's what sales reps are afraid of. So it's all about helping the prospects understand what's needed, help to set expectations appropriately, help them to know what the lift is so that they're ready and prepared so that they can partner with you. So I don't believe it has to be a heavy lift, but it has to be very defined. So, there's sales enablement involved. Hey, sales, these are your talking points. This is when we start introducing it. You keep it very, very high level. It's really about the journey ahead, big picture. And then you define very specifically when a CS person engages and how they engage and what they're engaging about. So it should not be a heavy lift. And plus CS teams need to have access to their CRMs so that they know what's in the pipeline. A lot of CS teams don't even have access, and they're just waiting for deals to close and like jump in and not know anything.
Yeah, it's 100% agree, right? Like a lot of times salespeople have to help even after the deal is closed, and a lot of times CS people have to help before the deal is closed. And so it's not like a handoff. It's more like a collaboration that, maybe the sales it tapers down as the CS involvement tapers up or so, but it is definitely collaboration. I think that's why it's so interesting, like the buyer journey and the customer journey, this little overlap that we are talking about. So I wanted to distinguish between user journeys and customer journeys. And last time we talked, we also talked about like the persona journeys, right? Like when you group a bunch of users together and like say, hey, this is the persona. So, and you have mentioned like onboarding users versus customer accounts in your book, right? So why is it important to think of onboarding users, personas, and accounts separately? So in B2C, we don't have this problem, right? Because you have a user, it fits a certain mold, but B2B is like far more complex. Like there's an account that you're selling to. There's like users. There are users with different personas. There's like the C level and the V level execs looking for value and ROI, and there's the operators looking to improve the product, and then there are individual contributors, right? So you know what I'm talking about, right? So let's talk about that a little bit more, the importance of users, personas.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in the B2B world, or I'll say SaaS, SaaS high tech world, there's this idea that the customer is a company, and you go live and you have a logo and they're using your product. But the reality is that their people are using your product, and the reality that the people are using your product are also consumers in their lives. And in the last, I would say decade or so, there's been a huge consumer revolution where consumers have so much more power. And so we have these expectations, right? And there's a huge opportunity in the world of B2B SaaS to really engage the users. Because if you don't have product adoption, then you don't have a license to renew. Because let's say you sell something to Acme, but I'll just say another thing. So you sell to Acme, you get 5 users, let's say, but your company's whole approach is land and expand, and you're not engaging the users. Well, then they're not going to use it. You just killed any land and expand potential. So when it comes time for renewal, the buyer is going to go, well, how many people are using this product? What value are we getting? Are we getting reports, insights? Is it making a difference? If no one's using it, then they're not going to renew. So if you don't have product users using the product, then you don't have a license to renew. And then just because so many companies I meet with, they do like a product walkthrough, but you might have executives using your product, you might have business users, you might have administrators, you might have developers. So each of those personas needs to know how to, they don't want to just log in and have a tour. They need to know how they're going to do their job faster, better, how they're going to make more money, how they're going to save money, how they're going to be compliant. And so they need to have specifics around what they're doing. So for example, I worked with a company, big data platform, and we were looking at, they had building out a self-paced journey for the data scientists and the data admins, and they do very different things. And when I looked at their existing self-paced journey, there was a huge amount of drop off, and it was just a lot of information. And it was just like, I don't know where to go. There was a bunch of links, or you could do this, you could do that, you could do the other. Well, we don't want, people don't want that. I want to be talked to. I'm the data analyst. I want to see, this is for me, here's my pathway, self-identify, and it needs to be the right content for the right user at the right time, whether that's in app, whether that's in a learning management system, whether that's webinars, whether that's instructor-led, hand-holding, white glove treatment. It doesn't matter, but we need to engage those specific personas. And I'll just add one more thing here, which is that I work with companies. I worked with a supply chain management company. They had a B2B to B to B to C.
Wow.
And all of those users need to be enabled and onboarded. I'm just starting working with a company that does a medical payment platform. They have the B is like the health institutions, but the C is a P. It's patient. It's health institutions and patients, the B2P. So, if they could roll out this great thing so that I could pay on my mobile phone, but if a patient doesn't know how to do it, then they're not going to renew.
Yeah, when you mentioned B2P, I thought you were going to talk about like partners, because partners are similar. They have
there's partners too. There's B2B to P to C.
Yeah. And one thing that struck that you said, it made a lot of sense. Like, we spend a lot of time trying to create monthly active users, right? Like, we bring people in, we walk them through like the in-app guidance and all those kind of things. But a lot of times there are executives, and all they care about is the product useful? Are we getting value? What is the ROI? So instead of like driving them into the product and making them go through the tour, we could take that information directly to them wherever they exist, right? Whether it's email, text, and any of those kind of things, right? At the end of the day, they are paying for the bills, right? So they need to know that the product that the other personas are using in the company
and they need to know the insights. What difference is it making?
Yes, exactly.
So that's where like an executive, they may not be using it every day like their teams are, but they need to have a dashboard that's really showing the impact.
Yes. Yeah, they could, but again, that logging into the system is a challenge for an executive. So taking the dashboard in them might,
like with CastStat.
Yeah. So we hear that a lot, like, oh yeah, but the users are using it, but we do this QBR thing or something, and the executives don't show up for QBRs, right? So we say like, providing continuous value, continuous reach out to every persona. So yeah. Let's talk about like scaling onboarding. And one of the things when I was like browsing through your book last night, I saw, like you mentioned, like something like spreadsheets and CRMs are the most used tools, and you listed it somewhere with a long bunch of like other tools. That's absolutely true for Cast.app. Like, even though we support like CSV files, spreadsheets, several CRMs, any database that Amazon does, any database that Google does, or any database that Azure or Microsoft does, right? All of them. But we find most of the people use like a CRM like Salesforce or like Google Sheets, CSV files, Snowflake, or some of the other things. So what's the reason? Why do even very sophisticated companies still use CSV files and Google Sheets and CRMs? So,
well, they're easy, they're accessible. But here's the big concern, that onboarding and customer success teams are not running their business, their organization as a business. They're one, the teams are siloed. Two, all the account stuff is siloed. So for example, I often see companies work with project plans, tools, or spreadsheets for managing every account. And that might mean like, okay, I'm managing your account, say, and I can see all the things I need to do for you, but they're losing all this visibility into, at a higher level to see what's going on with all the accounts for one CSM or one onboarding manager or for the whole customer success organization. So therefore they can't run their business because they don't have any insights or data there. So there's issues. Customer success is often seen as a cost, and so they struggle to get a budget for valuable tools. And also oftentimes they start as small teams and they use those tools because they're not investing. In a sales organization, you have sales ops, you have a CRM, and you have an admin who runs all that, right? And in CS, everyone's just trying to figure it out. So we're still maturing as an industry, but in general, the leaders need to be stepping up and owning their business and being a business owner to really have the tools needed and to show the impact to customers and to the company, to the executives and the boards. So then they'll get more investment into awesome tools.
It's surprising is because for scaled companies, like 75% of the revenue kind of comes from existing customers, right? And I'm talking like companies like Salesforce, Slack, Segment, and UiPath. And I actually was asking that question to anyone and everyone that I talked to, right?
Oh.
It was in the 66% to like 77% of the revenue comes from existing customers. And yet the budgets for CS tools is much smaller than budgets for sales tools. Right. So, and that's fine. I mean, and that's why we think like people need more automation than like very expensive tools, because we can do a lot more with automation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're still stuck in this old sales paradigm. I mean, so look at things right now. The reality is that 50 to 80% of your revenue is coming from your existing customers, and everyone, things are quiet and everyone's running around trying to get new customers. And hello, that's very expensive. And, new sales are quiet right now. So they should be really diving in and engaging their existing customers. And we still, there still seems to be a big level of understanding and maturity needed there. And then again, CS teams need to be really demonstrating their impact, then they'll start getting all the resources they need.
All right, let's switch topics, right? So in your book, I found a graphic saying that visuals are processed 60,000 times faster than text. And 90% of the information passed to the brain is visual, right? And which is 100% true. Like, in fact, the brain processes text as a collection of small images and has to kind of put it together to understand what you're saying, right? So that, and this is some research that we did. And this is exactly why people process images, videos, and presentations way faster than reading a blog post or reading an email or a report or so, right? So, and I originally mentioned that I'm going to send you the study. The study is actually from Washington State University and mentions that people retain 6.5 times more than what they visually than what they read. So if they view presentations or something, the 6.5 times is more. And if you're like an engagement and influence platform like Gas.app, right, that's very important to us. Like, visually explaining insights, engaging users, and tying those explanations to relevant actions, right? So talk about the importance of visual communications during the customer journey, including onboarding.
Sure. So what I found was that, when I'd be meeting with companies, first of all, everyone's busy. They're coming from, other Zoom calls, and everyone's heads are full of personal and professional things, right? I mean, I've got so many lists of things I need to do today. And so what I was finding is people were kind of like, I'm moving them through a journey, but they're always kind of like, where are we? Where we're going? Where we've been? And so what I did, I started learning about the visuals, and I just created. I'm going to share this. This is my tailored version of my orchestrated onboarding framework for how I work with companies. And so here's the journey, and it just kind of like, here's the journey we're on. And then as we move through the journey, all I did, I created this on Canva. I just highlight where we are. And it's amazing. Like if I start a meeting and all I do is kind of show where we are,
Yeah.
where we're going, where we've been, people like just kind of calm down. You know, it's like it's really interesting. They just kind of they settle and then they're ready to be present. We create a branded image with some very simple journey so people understand where we're going, and it helps them to, it kind of gives them the itinerary so they can relax and kind of be part of the journey with you rather than just being stressed and overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And you know, I am all about a phrase I'm really into these days is transformation, not information. So when the onboarding and implementation began, most companies throw a lot of information at their customers, at the people working with, and all it does is overwhelm them.
Mhm.
And we're looking to deliver transformation. That's why our products are here, are to transform their companies.
Yeah. And then when you started showing the visuals, you like briefly showed like what was the onboarding orchestration. I kind of recognize that from the book as well.
Oh yeah, I can share that for sure.
Yeah, so let's just jump into it, right? Like so, and then so my question would be like, how would you automate certain aspects, those six stages that you showed? What aspects can be automated in your framework? That is.
Sure. So the main thing that one of the big critical things that I focus on is that onboarding is so much more than going live with your product. It's about building trusting and enduring relationships so that you get that expansion with those existing customers, because that's where most of your revenue is coming from. And that, you know, when customers win, you win. So that all starts with the embark stage, which you call pre-onboarding.
Yeah.
Then we have handoff and kickoff. And these really set up the implementation to be successful. I won't go into all of these stages.
Yeah.
Then we have adopt, which includes the implementation, but also the adoption, because the user training enablement, because as we said earlier, if you don't have users, you don't have a license to renew. And then we have review and expand, because guess what? There's high turnover, there's new products, your products are, you know, new things are always coming out. You acquire a company, you get acquired. So you really need to keep those customers engaged. And I gotta say, I'm shocked because so many companies that have a land and expand growth approach, they do not engage new customers once that initial go live has happened. And yet their product's constantly changing and they're not helping, you know, and the turnover is extreme these days, and they're not helping any new users be successful. So that's hindering their land and expand. But you know, so what you can do this as a high touch, as a low touch, as a tech touch, as a hybrid touch. What I often do when I work with companies is we do a higher touch, but we weave in tech touches or lower touches, so that I like to call it a hybrid touch. But absolutely, you can be sending email campaigns. You can have in-app product, in-product guidance. You have in-product chat. But the main thing is you're not just throwing, whoops, I went the wrong slide there. It's not advancing. There we go. The main thing is that you're not just throwing information at people, but you're giving them the right content for the right user at the right time that's going to drive behavior to get them to value and to get them to the next thing. So for example, a lot of companies I talk with, they tell me, well, we know customers are successful when they move off their legacy system. We know customers are successful when they use the electronic in-product waiver for customers to sign. We know customers are successful when they use, you know, they get reports. Well, then you have to make sure that that journey is not just you can log in, but that it's driving that behavior to get to those sticky points that's going to guarantee your customers are going to get value and therefore will stick around, and therefore your company will stick around.
Nice. Yeah. And then that's exactly what I was looking for. Like in there, or you call embark, we call like pre-boarding. So, but it's the same thing. But one thing was interesting is like you drew it as a infinite loop that starts back, right? So, so we kind of talk about like cross-selling products and upselling features. You know, we talk about like add-ons and their attach rates. We do we take existing customers for granted? Like, is onboarding for a cross-sold product to an existing customer any different? Because I see the loop back that you have, right? Like,
Yeah,
if you sell
it
something
could,
new.
so well, yes, we do take existing customers for granted. We need to continue to deliver a value journey. And so, that's why I have the double infinity.
Yeah,
So it really depends. Like, so let's say you have, you've gone live and you get some new users. Well, you might just need to kind of loop back in here and to do some product adoption, some rollout. And because what they're using is, there's just some new people who are using
yeah,
it. However, you might roll out to a new region, a new geo. You might roll out to a whole new department, and there might be new requirements, tailorization, customization. So therefore, you're gonna really need to step back and kind of understand their requirements, know where they're going, set that expectations, have a kickoff. If it's a whole new implementation, yes, you're gonna start the entire loop over. But you roll out a new product feature, yes, help people know kind of what's coming and why and how they're going to benefit and how it fits in with your existing platform. So absolutely. Excuse me. So it depends on what
yeah,
those customers need. But does the onboarding team do it? Does the customer success team do it? Yeah, I would say it depends, but you need to keep
yeah,
engaging customers and not just go, how's it going?
yeah,
But keep delivering more value. So often customers use, a surface level of the product, and the goal is like help them understand all the amazing depth and breadth so that they get more value and they're going to pay more and
yeah.
tell everyone how great it is.
Yeah, exactly. And just like you're showing the double infinity, but I think we should not be so rigid, because we as cast, we have gotten like expansion during a kickoff, right? So the kickoff is happening, somebody want to expand, and usually happens like this, right? They say, "Oh, let's start using Cast for the low touch kind of thing," and then they see the value. Then they say, "Oh, we should also do it for the other two tiers," right? And then, "Oh, let's leave the strategic customers off for now," and so they end up enabling it for like maybe four, like 3 out of 4 tiers or 4 out of 5 tiers, right? So we see that all the time, and that brings me to like think like, yeah, we have these, but we should not assume that expansion will only happen after a review or
Oh,
after,
that's a great point.
right? So
Expansion happens when you deliver value, and if that
exactly,
could take 1 minute, could
yeah,
take 30 seconds.
yeah, exactly.
So that's the key thing.
Yeah, and then even like delivering like perceived value, when the moment we haven't gone live with the customer, they see the perceived value, right? They run a test or something, and they see, and then they want to expand. So yeah, so and that's my complaint about the customer mapping and all those kind of things, right? Like
No, I think
we
it
map
starts to
the
get
customer
too rigid.
journeys, and like 66% of the customers don't follow your customer map, but it is
Yeah.
still good to do, because you get to know how your customers
Mhm.
are using the product.
I want to just jump back into the pre-onboarding, because what I do is when I'm working with a company where they have, let's say there's a huge data migration, or they need to integrate with, health insurance companies, or health institutions like this company I'm working with now, that could take weeks. And then the deal closes, and then they sit around for weeks kind of, and then nobody in onboarding can start, and customers just kind of going, they're frustrated, and it's not the company's fault. So they'll even front load before the deal closes. Hey, we need your information. We need to start working on this. It takes 3 weeks if we want to move as quickly as possible. And sometimes the companies can't recognize revenue until they go live, and they're busy waiting on this data migration or integrations. And so I have them start communicating that to customers, and even start, prospects during the sales cycle. So they then the minute the deal closes, they can start delivering value as quickly as
Yeah,
possible. And they're
yeah.
not just kind of sitting there waiting and hoping that all of this migrations and integrations happen.
Yeah, when we talk to like customers, and like we usually work with like the CCO or the VP of CS most of the time, but a lot of times they bring in their CRO or the revenue leaders as well. So I ask the question, who do you want to start pre-boarding? And then they usually come up with a number. if probability to close is greater than 70% or 80% or something, so that's when they want to like start with.
Yeah,
And it is strategic or so.
exactly. Yeah.
But when we bring Cast in, you have the capability of providing it to all the customers using automation, because we are using virtual CSMs, right? So instead of like a human CSM, so you can start providing that value to like several more customers. And we have seen people say that, yeah, it helps. It shows that the CS team has everything together. They want to really help us, like, be to
Yeah.
be successful.
It instills confidence and
Yeah.
trust, which
Yeah,
are really key to new relationships.
exactly. So I think those are all the questions I have. And is there anything else you want to advise to someone looking at like both doing onboarding or using automation to do pre-boarding and onboarding, or any parting advice?
Well, parting advice is that companies are spending too long with onboarding, and it's costing them too much money. So, they might, let's say the product's $30,000, and then they're spending 6 months to onboard, and they're probably spending $30,000 to onboard that account. And that doesn't even include customer acquisition costs. So you really need to know what it's costing you to onboard a customer and look for ways to scale like now, because you can't be spending all that money to onboard customers. You're not going to break even for 2 or 3 years, and that's going to really hurt your company. So really pay attention to what you're doing that's basic and repeatable, that can be delivered in a one-to-many approach or in an automated way or in the product, so that you need to really drive down the costs to onboard and get customers live in your product.
Great. Thank you so much, Donna. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, pleasure's all mine.
Thank you so much.